We're recording today. We're having the famous poet, the Honorable Martin Ezemano, Barrister Martin Ezemano, who is a poet, has been a poet for a long time. Who hasn't given us a a collection of poetry till now? You and the like of Chiedu Ezena, Abubakar Nani, you're a poet that. We learned from for a long time, but you've not given up a poetry collection. So, Esa, what is your understanding of poetry?
Mm. I think poetry is mankind's primary interaction with the world of art.
Hmm. Hmm.
Primary interaction.
Hmm.
Art. Every society, every human society is possessed of its own body of indigenous poetry. When I talk of poetry, I'm not talking about just written verse. I'm not talking about subordinating our poetry to the white man's canonizations. No, I'm talking about poetry as a concept. So the very first interaction that mankind has with art is poetry. And I'll give you immediate examples. In your community, for instance, now, I'm sure there are some songs, some rhymes, some performances that are done on particular days. Those are poetry, chants. You
Yeah.
understand?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just that unfortunately, some of us have been made to swallow hook, line, and sinker. That white man's conception that until it is committed to paper, it is not poetry. What I'm saying in essence is that Africa is possessed of poetry. So for me, mankind's first interaction with us is poetry. And for me again, poetry is the most profound of all the genres that you can think of. Is the most basic,
Uh,
is the most base, is the primary, and is the most profound, and it is revolutionary. I will expatiate on that as we proceed further.
wow, this is a lot. This is a lot to
Mm.
take in. There is some sort of debate or a point of view, or I would say perceptions about us having African poetry and European poetry. Do you think that either our poetry has been diminished or our poetry has not been taken to that level of European poetry? That distinction between we say, yeah, no, this is African poetry, no, this is European poetry. Because these days we have what we call African professors, professor of African literature, and it's like for me, it's like a demeaning. What,
I
sir?
totally
What do you
agree
think?
with you. And that's why I said earlier that poetry is revolutionary. I totally agree with you. It is demeaning, it is insulting, it is condescending, and it should be resisted. Very vehemently resisted. There are some basic things in nature. Nobody teaches you how to eat.
Yeah.
Nobody teaches a baby.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
understand? The moment a baby is born, you watch the mouth is moving because it wants to suckle.
yeah,
You understand? It comes with the package. So the moment you now start allowing somebody to teach you what has come with you naturally,
yeah,
you are insulting yourself. You understand? As far as I'm concerned, saying African poetry is like saying African mango and European mango. Mango is mango.
yeah,
The only difference may be the environmental, the variations because of maybe the weather of a place. You understand? But
yeah,
mango in Africa is mango.
yes,
Mango in Europe is mango.
yeah.
Now, a situation where you now tell me that European mango is superior to African mango, you may end a thunder on your cheek.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yes.
Because as far as I'm concerned, there's no basis for that. Water, water
Yes.
is universal.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And it has different language, different names in
Yeah.
different languages. You understand?
Yeah.
In Hausa, we call it Ruwa.
Yeah.
Yoruba call it Omi.
Yeah.
Igbo call it Miri. You
Yeah.
understand? But
Yeah.
anywhere you go, it is water.
Yeah.
You understand? So by the time you now start saying that African water is inferior to European water, it is intellectual dishonesty. That is number one. It's intellectual fraudulence.
Hmm.
And then the next thing is that for some of us, like I said, poetry is revolutionary. I think a crop of poets, but let me not preempt myself. A crop of poets are coming up now that are challenging all these accepted norms and standards, challenging them and overturning them. You
Beautiful.
understand?
Beautiful.
So Like you now. I Let me say this, not because you are interviewing me. You're one of the finest poets of this generation. You see people like you, people of Obari Gumba. Yes, yes.
Appreciate
People like yourself, Obari Gumba. You see Chidi Ezana, my compatriot who has not published like me. You understand? Now, when you read such poetry, you are taken to another range.
Yeah.
This is not poetry that is written with a handbook behind you or beside you. When you now say how many rhymes. You understand? Whether the A, B, C, you know, that is balderdash. You understand? It comes spontaneously. And what I've found is that, perhaps you may attest to it, that the most profound works are the most spontaneous works.
God bless you. That is it. That is the reality. That is the reality.
So I don't subscribe to that classification of African or European, or the subordination of African art to any other art, whether European or American or Indian or Australian. I don't accept that. And anybody who does that in my presence may aim thunder on his cheek.
Yes, our third question is I've known you to be a poet for like 11 years now. I've heard about you before meeting you. And with 2 or 3 poets that I know, that up till now you haven't given us a poetry collection. Is it that your standard is not up to what you're writing, or that you are afraid to put your work in the public sphere?
It is neither.